Hey guys, what's up? Me and Draco here. And today is such a lovely day. It is about 24 Celsius or like 76 Fahrenheit. And it is just absolutely perfect out here. There's some really lovely things to see today. So all of my plants that were inside are outside. These ones are up higher on the porch because, as you can see, it's shadier up here, so I can like slowly acclimate them to full-on sunlight and heat. But these are my replacement peppers that I planted once I realized that the ones that I had were stunted. And so these are probably about the right size to go ahead and get planted out. You can see they're just a little smaller than I would normally have them at the time of planting out, but it is such perfect conditions for them. I'm certain that they will grow quickly and absolutely take off. Now, compare that to these are the ones that were stunted. You can see I've kind of given up on a lot of them. I've just been letting them kind of flower, and maybe I will get some small peppers out of them. We'll see. But I've also noticed that they're starting to green up in these pots, which is kind of crazy to me. A lot of them, not all of them, but a lot of them are looking much better at the top, especially like this one and even this one. Like I might go ahead and plant this one out just because it looks so good compared to like everything else. So I also have all of the tomato starts that I had started when I noticed the curling on the leaves of the other ones. And these are all wonderfully healthy starts, but I do actually not have anywhere to put them because the other tomatoes actually did recover and they are growing just fine. Like they look absolutely amazing, which I'm very surprised about, but they do look good. So now I have all these seedlings that have nowhere to go and I feel really bad about it, but I'm not sorry that I was prepared. Like you can see how big these are. Obviously I would have been a little more behind, but like I had this backup plan and I'm definitely not sorry that I had it. And then if we look at the tomatoes that were curly, these are the ones that I never transplanted because they were extra. You can see they are still curly and sick looking. Like this is really bad. This is very clear to me the more I look at it, an herbicide damage. And you'll see just how big the difference is between these and the ones out in the garden in just a minute. With these ones that are sick though, I do have to figure out how I'm going to dispose of them because this herbicide that I think that they have, it doesn't disintegrate very quick. Part of the reason it's such a big problem for people is because it can get sprayed on something like hay or straw, which is resistant, and that's why it's used on those crops. And then be eaten by something like a cow, and then that manure can get composted, and that compost can end up in your garden, and this can still be a problem for those plants. So I cannot just take this soil and put it in my compost pile. I can't put these plants in my compost pile. So I'm gonna have to figure out something else to do with them. I don't want to like fully throw them in the trash because that feels bad, but I might find a place on my property that's not really near where I'm gonna be trying to grow plants for a couple of years and let them disintegrate over there. Out here on the steps I also have the remnants of my hot peppers. These are just the ones that I did not have any space for. I planted as many as I could. And this is kind of the remnants of the eggplant and a few herbs. I do still have skullcap here that took forever to get going. I thought it was dead, but it's here, and so I need to go ahead and plant that out. And I also have a few new baby seedlings of basil that need to get planted out. I had 2 trays, planted one of them, and the second one needs to go ahead and get planted out. Before we get into the rest of the tour today, I do want to say a quick thank you to my patrons. You guys are the ones who are helping me transition from doing this as kind of a hobby towards doing this as an actual job, which means that would give me more time to do more videos. Currently I'm at like 1 or 2 a week. I would like to be able to do like 3 or even 4 a week during the height of when everything is going on, because a lot of things do like pass through under the radar. I don't have time to make a video about this because I'm just struggling to actually get it done because of all the other work I have to do to survive. And so I want to say thank you for supporting me in that way. And for those of you who haven't heard, I do have a Patreon that you can join. Even for just $1 a month, you can be watching all these videos without any ads and also helping me out. I do have some other really cool perks for people who have more to donate. There are exclusive stickers that you can get, and also a Discord community that you can join where we can chat like actually one-on-one or in groups. You can send me photos of your garden. You can ask me specific questions about, hey, I'm having this problem, like what do you recommend? And we have discussions pretty often about like bigger problems or things that are on our minds in the gardening community. We talked about when that purple tomato came out that was GMO. We talked about that article that I talked about briefly on the channel, where people were saying that it's actually not as environmentally friendly to have a home garden based on certain metrics, and just all of these things that are like really like present on our minds as gardeners, that we often don't have other people in our lives that we can talk to. We have this group to talk to about that. All right, let's get into the tour for today. So I'm going to start out in the same place I always do so that you can kind of get a sense of where everything is. We are at this arched trellis, which is new to me this year, and I have decided to plant scarlet runner beans on it, which should be a perennial bean. And so I'm hoping that this trellis will end up kind of thickly covered in vines every year, and I think that that would be really pretty. I did replant some of them because only like 3 out of the 10 that I planted actually survived, but I haven't seen them come up yet. And they took a while the first time, so I'll expect them maybe for you guys to see by next week. All right, and then coming towards the tomatoes, we are going to wait on that and look at this real quick. These are strawberries that I've planted here. These are cuttings from my original strawberry patch. What happened was, as you can see, strawberries make runners, and so I had cut one of these off and planted it. I cut many of them off and overwintered them in little solo cups. And those of you who've been here will remember just how sad they looked. And now here they go, they're taken off. And the plan is for them to work on outcompeting this Bermuda grass, which is like, it feels unkillable at times. It's so bad. And the only way to get rid of it is to continually choke it out. And I'm hoping that plants can help me with that here, as they have in the berry patch. I also want to check in with this one. This one is a little lighter in color because it is a different variety from all my other strawberries. This was a gift from a viewer, and it should be a yellow strawberry, which is going to be very cool. And we'll see if it puts on runners the same way the other ones do. I know that everbearing are less likely or less intense with their runners than June-bearing type strawberries are. So this is my tomato row. I've got this cattle panel trellis here for them, and I've been doing this tomatoes in this area ever since I've had this garden, and they are looking, like I said, so much better than they were before. You can still see kind of the remnants on this one of some of the curled branches that it had. I did come through and prune these pretty heavily. Oh, and you can see we've got some baby fruits coming on. This is a black plum tomato, and it will be like from first fruits. This is probably still at least a month out from harvesting, if not more. It takes forever. I remember when I was first starting gardening, I got so excited. I was like, oh, I'm gonna have fruit like so soon, like a couple of weeks. No, it is always so much longer than you think, but we are starting. And I have seen flowers and little fruits on a few more of these. I started kind of trying to train them toward the trellis And sometimes I will pin them, and other times I will just kind of stuff them through and let them hold themselves up. But yeah, this one, for example, could probably use a little pin, or what I mean by pin is twisty tie. I use little twisty ties, and I try to reuse them every year too. But obviously the like plastic bit around them tends to disintegrate a little bit. I've used string in the past for this, and that works pretty well too. It has like fully disintegrated into the garden, because I remember leaving some strings when I was cutting them off previously, and I haven't seen them since. Whatever works for you for trellising tomatoes, but I do like this flat panel type trellising as opposed to like a tomato cage, especially if you are working with indeterminate tomatoes, which is what I tend to work with. A tomato cage just simply will not contain them, and you will end up with a very cramped tomato that doesn't have good airflow and starts getting diseases pretty quick. Not to say that you won't get a harvest that way, but it will just not be as good of an environment, especially for these indeterminate types. Now for a determinate type tomato, you can probably get away with a cage and not have too many issues with that. But a lot of people just aren't even aware when they're buying these things that there's a difference. And if you're one of those people, that's fine. That's why I'm here. I like teaching people these things that a lot of gardeners forget, that new people don't know. Determinate means that there's a determined size for that plant. It will get to the size it's going to be and put on all its fruit at once, more or less. And then indeterminate means that it could theoretically just keep on growing as long as conditions are good. It will keep getting bigger, it will keep putting on more fruit. Its fruit does not come on all at once, which can be an issue if you're trying to preserve, but I find with as many plants as I have, that is not a problem. And yeah, they do get big. You do have to cut them back. And if you live somewhere where it never freezes or gets cold enough to kill them, you can theoretically have them for a very long time. If you follow me until later in the season, you'll see these indeterminate types grow all the way up the trellis, and then I will get like tired of caring for them because it becomes so much work, and they will start flopping down the other side of the trellis. Tomatoes are a vining type plant, not a bushing type plant, and so they will just kind of keep going up and out unless you contain them. I do have a video on my channel talking more in depth about pruning tomatoes, but this is an example of why you would want to. I generally cut off all the leaves that are touching or close to the ground, because this is just something that happens from bacteria in the soil getting onto the leaves. And when they're this size, you know, it's really hard to keep up with cutting off all the lower leaves because they do have so few leaves to begin with. But as they get taller, like everything from here up to about here at least, maybe more, gets completely cut off, bare stem on the plant. I am also keeping an eye on the garlic that is underneath the tomato trellis. These are not ready to harvest yet. You're looking for like a majority of the leaves to be brown and dying, and I would expect that to happen maybe in June into July for garlic. So we're getting close, but not quite there on these garlic. And some of them are quite large. I mean, this is a pretty large type of garlic. It's not an elephant garlic. It is called Dixon softneck. And over the years, I have been selecting the biggest cloves to replant. So theoretically, it stays big or gets even bigger over time. But you can see that doesn't always work because all of these are the same type. In between my tomatoes, I pretty consistently plant basil. This is an Emily basil, which is a good pesto basil. I also have purple basil here that I really like to plant every year, and it is actually right next to. This is a purple pole bean called Blue Cocoa. I think this one actually sprouted on its own. It's not by a post, which I almost always plant these interplanted with my tomatoes, and I plant them next to the posts so I know where to look for the seedlings coming up. But this one's kind of in the middle. So we will train this one up to the trellis as well, and I find it coexists really well with the tomatoes. It doesn't take up all that much room, and these plants can be very, very productive. Y'all can go back through my older videos to see just how many beans I can get off of like the 3 plants that I usually try to get on here. It's looking like I might have more this year though. Planting more is, I don't know, maybe it's a little excessive. Maybe I'm being a little too hopeful about the amount of time that I will have to process and eat this food, but I do have a pressure canner this year, and I am really hoping that I can actually pressure can some fresh beans for once, and not have to like worry about either eating them all fresh or shelling all of them dried, which I do eventually do. I love these as shelled dried beans. I've been making chili from them all winter. But yeah, the more you plant, the more work there is when the harvest comes in. What an adorable little baby. Look at him. All right, moving on to this second row here. I've got a row of garlic and onions going up the side, and then more onions right here by Draco. We've got a lot of lettuces, and I've planted a lot of new things in here as well. The lettuces are like just now starting to look like they might go to seed. Like these ones in the path are probably going to seed. I think these are Marvel of 4 Seasons. And this one and these ones have not yet started going to seed, although the flavor is not as good as it was when it was cold. These are romaine, different romaine types. One of them's a Cosmo and one of them's a Jericho, although at this point I don't remember which. And I have already interplanted eggplant around here because I know that these do not have that much longer to live. And eggplant doesn't need that space right now, but it will need it soon. So we are planning ahead to not have empty space. And I do still have these peas in here that I planted at like in the fall last year. These are dwarf variety, and they did make some peas for me, but I never got around to picking them because they kind of did it all so fast. I didn't really see them until it was too late. But really the point of these was just to have something here to cover the ground, and also as a pea it is nitrogen fixing and helping to bring nitrogen out of the air into the ground so that other plants can access it. If you're into the sciencey stuff like me about that, I do have a video talking about exactly how nitrogen fixing works, and it is so cool. Alright, so we do have some zinnias interplanted, and more black walnut seedlings that the squirrels planted. And then in here are all of my sweet peppers that came from those ones I was telling you about that definitely got stunted. They were in that same soil that really curled the tomato leaves, and they are alive and potentially recovering, but they're not recovering quite as fast as the tomatoes did, and I'm just wondering whether or not they're going to be actually productive for me or not. Although this one looks promising. You can see all the new leaves coming in. We'll see. I do have backup plants, and I showed those to you, and we'll be getting those planted. Eggplant also went through that same process of curly leaves in that bad soil, so we'll see how these recover as well. I did not plant extras of these, so we are hoping and holding our breath. Then as we come farther down here, more lettuce. This is a potato that I did not plant but probably just forgot to dig up. And these onions are actually starting to flop on me, which means they're pretty much done. They're not going to get any bigger after they flop, but it helps to wait for the outer skin to kind of dry out real good on them before you pick them, so that they will store really well. And I'm still very confused why I have some purple onions when I planted seeds that were clearly from yellow onions. But I mean, who knows what kind of crossing happened or genetic anomalies. Here's another one that's purple from that same batch, but most of them look like they turned out yellow. This section back here is all of my hot peppers. When I planted them, I topped them which means I just cut off the entire top of the plant. And as you can see, here's the wound right here. And every little spot where one of these leaves is coming out, right there in between is a new big stem coming out. And so this is going to be a much bushier plant because of that. And it will theoretically make me more peppers, given that it has enough light and nutrition and water and all of that. These ones were never subjected to that bad soil, so they look much healthier than all my other peppers. There are a couple more potatoes back here, and also some onions that have gone to seed. This one and this one are the two that I left specifically because they looked so healthy and because I wanted seeds from those very healthy, very big onions. So I left them for their second year, and we are just now starting to get flowers from them. I will save the seeds, but I'm also in the process of investigating perennial onion options so that I don't have to go through this whole saving seeds and replanting process. And it sounds like somebody's dog is having a really rough time over there. I hope it's not too distracting for you guys. My Brussels sprouts have been making pods recently. These are where the seeds are going to be, and I'm again not entirely sure how viable these are going to be because brassicas need like multiple plants to make good seeds, unlike tomatoes and peppers, which are self-fertile flowers. But we are getting what look like seeds, so that is a good sign. And I have pulled out some of these plants as well, especially like in this area, and I'll probably pull out like maybe this one that looks more sick than the others, but I'm hoping to get some seeds out of these before I pull them out. Okay, we are on to the third row now. Right here in front of me is a carpet of clover that I just haven't bothered to pull because I mean I wasn't going to plant anything here anyway. I have been walking around it quite easily, which means maybe I could have planted something here. I kind of had envisioned this entire thing being a walkway, but it is kind of a waste of space that I'm trying to remedy. Anyways, we have noodle beans here on this first trellis, and you can see they're just about to get to that point where they're going to start vining pretty aggressively. And at that point, every week they will be like a foot or two taller. It'll be really intense. And they will cover this trellis, and every year it is so cool because noodle beans are just like really long green beans, and so they're just like dangling down in this arch and looking really cool. On this second trellis back here, I had planted cucumbers and blue butterfly peas, and I actually see a single blue butterfly pea sprout right here. I have not seen any cucumber sprouts. I did replant like a few days ago. And I'm really hoping to see them. It has been raining a lot, so it's not like they're not getting enough water to sprout. I've had trouble getting cucumbers to sprout here in the past, and I have absolutely no idea why, because the seeds have shown themselves to sprout in containers, which we'll see later, so they're not dead seeds, but something about this spot has been really hard to get cucumber germination, and I thought it was a fluke last year, but maybe something else is going on. I have no idea though. Back past the trellises, these are my backup sweet peppers. These are store-bought, and I got these as I was also planting those little babies because I really want to make sure that I have sweet peppers this year. So we've got backups upon backups, and like the difference in these versus the other ones I think is very clear. So I'm feeling really hopeful that I'll get some good harvests off of these. And the rest of this area, I mean there's the lettuces, but this whole area back here I recently planted with corn. And I haven't really seen it come up yet, but I bet by next week there will be little corn sprouts all in here. And it is specifically a popcorn type corn. I'll look up the variety for you and put it on the screen, but I am obsessed with popcorn. Like that's the reason I want to grow corn. And I'm still actually going through the popcorn that I grew last year, although I'm getting kind of low, so we'll see. I think I planted more here because I think I need just a little bit more to like actually provide popcorn for myself for my regular consumption for the entire year. All right, fourth row right here. In the front, we've got another volunteer cilantro, that is going to seed, and I'm going to let it. We've also got some random lettuces that I put in here. This one, I don't even know if I planted it, but these Merlot lettuces are very cold hardy and happen to go to seed first. So that's good to know. And then in here, these are cosmos that kind of self-seeded in my path. Let's see. Here's one that's flowering. These are so beautiful. I also have been seeing these flowers, and these are actually, I think, radish flowers. I forgot that I had tried to plant radishes in here, and I feel like I never really saw them come up, but apparently one or two made it in between all the weeds. So we've got some radish flowers for now, until I decide to pull it all up and put something in here. I don't exactly know what I'm putting in here yet. Maybe more peppers. Definitely not the sort of place for tomatoes. It's kind of shady. It is a little shady for peppers too, but I've had them do okay in this area. They're just a little slower. A view from farther back, you can see why it is so shady. This tree gets bigger every year, and I am a renter. There's only so much I can do. So I'm just having to adapt to, okay, this area is going to be very shady, and we're going to try and do what we can with it. I have planted a couple of basils in here because I seem to remember last year them taking longer to grow, but also being the last to bolt. They held out on going to seed for a very long time, which is really good for basil in this very hot environment. So this might end up being like a really good place to put a majority of my basil if I can confirm that that is what is going to happen to these this year. The fava beans back here are still putting on like younger pods. We've got all the older ones down here that I'm basically just waiting on them to dry out so I can harvest the dried beans. And then all the way back here we have my poppies, which also self-seeded themselves into the path. I had one bloom already. It is this one. You can see this is its little seed pod now. It was only blooming for a short time. I'll put the picture up here, but these are the most gorgeous purple flowers that you will ever see. Before we leave this area to go on to the raised bed section, I do want to give you guys an update on my mushroom logs. I haven't talked about them in a while because actually nothing's really going on, and that's really disappointing to me. I feel like I should have seen fruit from these by now. They've had, I think, over a year to colonize these logs, and as you can see there are a bunch of other mushrooms that are not shiitakes all over this log, and I'm worried that they just got outcompeted, which is sad. But I mean, these are still pretty mushrooms, and I do have this one log over here. This is the one that I made during my little class that I took, and it has no other mushrooms on it at all, which I feel like is a good sign. This is supposed to fruit when it's consistently pretty hot outside, so maybe we'll see this more in like a couple of months. The rest of these should have fruited in cooler temperatures and just simply did not. And yeah, I guess these are the things that happen. I bet these logs that I got them from a friend who is an arborist. He cuts down trees, and likely the reason this tree was getting cut down was because it was already dying, and I bet that this was just already colonized in it and I didn't see when I was putting my own shiitake into it. I also have these logs in my swale. These are in here because it does get wet so much, and I was hoping that it would help them fruit more. I think I saw one baby lion's mane on this like a few weeks ago, but nothing really else since then. Which, you know, lion's mane is hard. It needs a lot of help to actually outcompete other mushrooms, and getting productive logs with lion's mane on my first try was going to be a long shot. And I'm pretty happy with the fact that I've gotten literally any at all. But these are still doing good things in the garden, even if they're not producing edible mushrooms for me. They are adding an attraction for other fungi, which fungi in general are really good partners for plants because they actually have this like symbiotic relationship where the fungi gather nutrients for the plant and the plant pays them with the sugars that it makes from photosynthesis. So it's a win-win situation, and we definitely want to cultivate that environment for our garden. On the subject of mushrooms, I do technically have a colony of wine cap mushrooms in this garden. In previous years I've had a lot of fruiting. I actually, over here where the straw is, found a couple fruiting, but haven't really seen any others around. And I think that's probably just because I didn't add a really heavy layer of mulch this year to the garden. But I'm pretty sure that the colony will persist even if it doesn't fruit. But it's one of those things where we'll just have to see. Wine caps are supposed to be a very easy beginner mushroom just because they do colonize so easily and they outcompete other things very easily. So they're just not fragile at all. And I think I just didn't feed them well enough for them to be like fruiting en masse like they have in years past. Okay, so pergola update. We've got 2 out of the 3 grapes that I planted have leafed out, and 0 out of 2 of the hardy kiwis has sprouted. And I was trying to be patient with it, but I'm starting to think maybe they're just dead. So I'm considering going and getting more from the store before it gets too late, you know, backup plans and everything. And those are going to take like a couple of years to establish, similar to the grapes, before they fruit. So I kind of want to get that started sooner rather than later. But if you haven't heard, the plan is for the grapes to grow all the way up this pergola that me and my dad made together. Video available on his channel, by the way, if you want to see how we did that. But the point of these rungs up the side is so I can actually climb up there and harvest any fruit that's at the top, because this thing is like 9 feet tall. This one grape that hasn't leafed out yet, I am worried but hopeful, because these little buds look like they're likely to open up soon. They don't really look dead to me. But I am new to grapes, so who knows. And the raised bed garden, looking lovely. As I was saying, my cucumber seeds seem to be fine. These 2 sprouted and are just now putting on their first true leaves in this little planter that I got. It is self-watering, which I'm hoping will be good because cucumbers are very water hungry. Let's see. Over in here, updates to consider. This turmeric is growing real fast. I think it's about to start really unfurling its leaves. We've also got this new asparagus that came up. This one is so much taller than the other ones, and I think that's probably a good sign. I wasn't expecting like multiple spears or anything in this first year, but it looks super healthy, so we'll keep our hopes up, and maybe we'll get an asparagus harvest next year. Over here, a lot of things look the same. The chives have been flowering, and these are now seeds down here. Carrots also flowering. We've got this one that was first. Very beautiful, but you can see this one's gonna flower, this one's gonna flower, this one's gonna flower. We're gonna get some good seeds out of here, and before long it'll actually be time to plant the fall carrots right here in the other side of them. So I mean, probably June or July. I'll have to check my notes. It's also becoming easier to kind of tell the difference between the ube and the regular sweet potatoes. I mean, look at these leaves. These look so good. This will be like fully vining out by the end of the season. There is another turmeric in here, which will definitely get big enough to hold its own against all the vines. I just gotta hope that it does so in time before it chokes out, which I think it will. Looks good. And my potatoes over here, I actually noticed they're starting to flower, which is like kind of rare for potatoes. They don't always flower. And these are beautiful flowers. You can see how nightshade they look. But yeah, these ones are determinate. They will be ready once most of the tops have died back. And I also have planted Jerusalem artichoke in here because I would like to have a more perennial potato-like thing. And these are also a native plant species, which whenever you can, go with native. It'll just do so much better. Up here are more potatoes. These ones are a indeterminate variety, and I've been piling up grass clippings on them. I think that's actually working really well. They seem to be liking it, and this stuff dries out to like kind of a straw consistency, but smaller. And it makes it more exciting to mow the lawn because I'm like, oh, well, this is gonna be good for the garden. I am seeing just like a little bit of curling on the leaves, which makes me think that maybe, like I don't remember which bag of soil was the one that was bad, but there is a chance that some of it ended up in here. So that could be part of what I'm seeing. And at this point it looks kind of minor, but we're gonna keep an eye on it. The berry patch, though, is really where I've been focusing my attention lately. We are still waiting on blueberries to ripen, but we do have plenty of berries, which is very exciting. And strawberry harvest, still very strong. You can open up pretty much anywhere in here and see so many strawberries. I mean, look at that. I've already made 14 jars of jam from here and given away so many strawberries. Oh, look at that. Absolute perfection. This is a June bearing variety, even though it's May, but it is supposed to put on all of its fruit at once instead of in little bits over the whole season. So this should slow down pretty soon. I'm kind of keeping track of exactly how long that harvest season is going to be. And I'm trying to compare it to all the berries, right? Because raspberries just started. They're a little behind the strawberries. And the blackberries are getting real close. You can see they're starting to get pink. They were green for a long time. And then they're going to go from pink to black. And we'll track that as well. And maybe I'll show you guys a little calendar of when exactly all this stuff tends to be harvestable once I have it all recorded. And while I can get a lot of strawberries, the raspberries are really what's filling up the majority of my basket right now. And these look amazing. It is gonna come in waves. You can see all these unripe fruits right here. But these also mostly will produce around the same time, but they'll have two. They'll do this in the spring, and then they'll do kind of another wave as we get closer to fall. And if you look, you can see, okay, some of these branches that are fruiting pretty heavily, they have this dark wood, and this is last year's branch. And then we've got these green ones. This one is brand new this year, just grew up out of the ground, grew up from the root ball. And this is the one that will fruit in the fall and then again next spring. A quick check-in on our new babies here past the raspberries. This is a limequat, and I'm seeing brand new baby leaves here. That's a very good sign. Also some brand new stuff here. I'm not very good at figuring out where the graft line is, so anything coming from down here I'm likely to just pull, just because unclear. But this is obviously above the graft, so I'll let anything up here stay. This is my brown turkey fig. I've had it for like over a year now. I was keeping it in a pot until I knew where I wanted to put it, and now it lives here. I don't expect any fruit from it this year, but hoping it will get nice and established for a harvest next year. Then past this one, this is my kumquat, or maybe, no, this one's the limequat. The other one was a kumquat. And this one also, you can see it's putting on a lot of new branches. And I'm just so unclear about where the graft is. Like, I think it might be here, but it's really not as obvious as people have told me that it would be. So I will likely be pruning this lower stuff just in case, because I definitely don't want to accidentally be taking care of stuff that's below the graft that will not make good fruit for me. But even up here above the graft, we're seeing lots of good growth. And this one right here is a Chicago hardy fig. I got the cutting from the same viewer who sent me the yellow strawberry and all the turmeric seedlings. And this looks like it is like shocked a little bit from the transplant, but like probably going to recover. Like I see a little bud here, and this also looks like it's gonna do just fine. It's just gonna take a little while to get established, and like the fig, the other one we looked at, it'll probably fruit next year. Up here by the road, I have 2 other plants to check on. This is another Chicago hardy fig cutting. They sent 2 just in case one of them didn't survive, and this one is actually looking healthier than I expected. This is a shadier area than I would normally put it, but I didn't really have anywhere else to put it, and I didn't want to kill it, so I decided this is better than nothing. And it is near my elderberry cutting, which wasn't really a cutting, it was more of a like an elderberry of my friends was making a bunch of like shoots, and they didn't want them, so we like literally ripped it up out of the ground with as many roots as we could, and then I replanted all the roots here, and so it's establishing pretty quick. It is actually trying to flower, and I'll have to look into whether or not I should let it while it's still getting established. But yeah, next year I'm sure that this area will be full of elderberry. So if you want to keep up with these garden tours and you're new here, a new garden tour comes out every single Wednesday, and you can also go back and check out this playlist here if you really want to catch up on this year's garden tours. I also have, I think, 2 more previous years for you to look at. I think it's really interesting to see just how far the garden has come. It like when you're in it, it's like, oh yeah, this is like getting a little bit better, but like when you really see the transition, it's like, wow, this has come so far. It's very cool. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, I wish you happy gardening.